Okay. Sir.
Good evening. This is Wednesday, December 1st, the Intergovernmental Committee meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone. And the first thing I'm going to do is take attendance. I'm going to call council members first. Vice Chair Shanae Darby.
Present.
Thank you. Michelle Harley, Councilwoman Michelle Harley.
I saw her walking in the building.
Okay, I'll move on and come back to that. Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy. Was that a present?
No, she is not on.
Okay. Councilwoman Oliver.
Present.
Council President Congo.
Here.
Thank you. So, Councilwoman Harley just arrived. Thank you. Councilwoman McCoy. Are there any other council members that are present that are not part of the committee? Could you?
Councilwoman Brigida Fields.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spadola.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to start the meeting. The first thing on our agenda is an SBA presentation regarding the Hurricane Ida disaster. Who do I have to speak to that? Mr. Patrick?
I see that she's unmuted. I see that Ms. Cook is unmuted, but I do not see her connected to audio.
You don't see who connected?
Hello, can you hear me?
Who is this?
This is Willie Patrick.
Thank you for joining us. Yes, you may start. Well, let me say to everyone that even though the disaster was several months ago, I keep receiving phone calls and emails from individuals that are in the throes of either not having any place to live or not having food or being in their cars. So it seems like they wanted some clarification why they did not qualify or get, I looked it up under FEMA, and I think what it is called is Individual Assistance Program. So I would really like to know why Delaware did not, Wilmington did not qualify for that particular part of FEMA.
So Councilwoman Gray, I was under the impression that I was here in support of the SBA regional director who's supposed to be on the call presenting about the SBA declaration and providing some information about IA.
Yes, Mr. Patrick, can you all hear me?
Yes.
We are having, looks like Mary Cook is having a few technical difficulties, so we're trying to get that figured out now for her presentation.
Okay.
Okay, yes, we welcome all information, but that was the only question that I had when I called this meeting. That was my number one question, so I'm sorry that you didn't get that information.
Okay, so, and again, that's Mary Cook who has the information that you're looking for, Councilwoman Gray.
Okay, thank you.
Ah, there she is.
Oh, I think she's on now.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
my apologies. I could not hear anybody. I thought, oh.
Okay, Ms. Cook?
Yes.
I'm Councilwoman Gray, and one of the questions that I've been getting repeatedly, and the reason I wanted to have you and anyone else that had the information at the meeting, was I wanted to know why Wilmington didn't qualify for the Individual Assistance Program for IDA.
I'm sorry, I cannot answer that because I do not work for FEMA. I work for the Small Business Administration. So whether or not Wilmington was declared for individual assistance is upon that agency.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're going to give a presentation on small business disaster assistance?
Newcastle County is declared as a contiguous county for many other states' declarations. So I would like to share with you under which your constituents can apply. If you would turn to the next slide, please. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm supported by our Deputy District Director of Delaware, John Banks, and our Field Operations Specialist, Tangi Kyer, and Vanessa Morgan, and my FEMA partners did help us link up for this session. The U.S. Small Business Administration is very well known for the agency to come to start a small business or to consolidate businesses or expand or get ideas on how to excel. But the other part of the agency is the Office of Disaster Assistance. And our mission is to provide disaster loans to homeowners, renters, businesses of all sizes, and nonprofits. As a matter of fact, we are the primary source of federal assistance to help private property owners pay for disaster losses not covered by insurance or other recoveries. And the reason we say that is by law, SBA and FEMA are not allowed to duplicate benefits, which means that if an individual or business had insurance for the losses, we would help with the uninsured losses. Next slide, please. So basically, there are a couple of disaster declarations that we are going to talk about here today. One is a presidential declaration. FEMA can make a presidential declaration for individual assistance, and when they do that, SBA declares the very same areas as FEMA does for assistance. So that means that businesses of all sizes, nonprofit organizations, homeowners, and renters can apply. And when FEMA declares a disaster for public assistance, that's mainly for the towns to recover from the cost of overtime for emergency workers, damage to things such as City Hall, public schools, all of that. Then SBA will also make a declaration for those counties that were declared. In smaller disasters, it only takes 25 homes and or businesses with 40% or more uninsured loss to get an SBA declaration. So sometimes when the declaration does not meet the criteria of FEMA, the governor can request a declaration from SBA. In that declaration, we provide the same assistance as we would in a presidential individual assistance declaration, meaning we provide low interest loans to businesses of all sizes, homeowners, renters, and nonprofit organizations. Next slide, please. Basically, there are two types of loans. One is for physical losses. That means the money is used to repair and replace the physical damages that occurred. For a business, that can be inventory, damage to the building, machinery and equipment, furniture and fixtures, leasehold improvements. For a homeowner, that can be the house, a detached garage, landscaping, debris removal. And for a homeowner or renter, that can be contents, such as furniture, clothing, even automobiles. So these loans, homeowner and business loans for physical losses, are meant to take care of the uninsured or underinsured losses to property, whether it's real property, meaning real estate, or personal property, meaning contents. The other type of loan that we have is an economic injury disaster loan. If you are in a primary county or a county adjoining the primary counties, most likely, if you're a small business or a nonprofit organization, you are eligible for working capital funds. These funds are meant to pay the ordinary and necessary operating costs of the business in the manner that the business could have if the disaster had not occurred. And when I mean the ordinary, I mean every month the business has to pay lease or mortgage payment, have to pay payroll taxes, real estate taxes, pay for inventory, pay for health insurance, all of those types of things. So the economic injury disaster loans are designed to provide working capital to help keep the business in business. Next slide, please. So you wonder, how much can somebody borrow? Well, the answer is as much as their losses. But on this chart, we're showing the maximum amount. So a business can apply for up to $2 million for their physical damages. And again, that's for real property and business contents such as inventory, machinery, equipment, office supplies, all of those things. Then a small business or a nonprofit organization can apply for up to $2 million for the working capital disaster loan. That again is for money to keep the business in operation as if it had not suffered a disaster. The total between the two cannot exceed $2 million unless the business qualifies as a major source of employment. And that means that they employ 10% of the county's population. Disaster home loans are the most prevalent, and unlike our name, it's the most confusing. We're the Small Business Administration, and many people think, well, why am I having to go through the Small Business Administration? I don't have a business. I just had damage to my home. Well, the answer is Congress gave us this authority. We are the only program within the Small Business Administration that is allowed to make loans to homeowners and renters. 80% of our volume, in fact, is from homeowners and renters. And if you think about any town or any county, there's generally more people than there are businesses. So that's why we have more home loan applicants than business loan applicants. And this is important to you, even if you are more concerned about businesses, because businesses employ humans. Many of those employees may have had damage. The business owner may have had damage. Many in the community had damage. So we have to consider all components of the community. They are eligible for up to $200,000 for their repair and replacement. And then homeowners and renters are eligible for up to $40,000 for their content loss or personal property, including automobiles. And the reason, again, we say up to is the amount of damage is going to be estimated by SBA. You would not be eligible for $2 million if your business damage came up to $25,000. So what we're giving you here is the maximum amount. A very good part of our program now is mitigation. We not only want to lend to businesses and homeowners to repair and replace the damages that occurred, but we want to help protect the property from the same damage occurring in the future. So if the business or homeowner was flooded and they're interested in elevation, they can apply for an increase for up to 20% above the verified loss to provide capital for elevation. Some people want to elevate their utilities because they were in the basement, and if they were just located a little higher, they wouldn't have been damaged. Some people had extreme wind damage from a hurricane, and they want to put safety glass in their windows. There's all sorts of mitigation or protective improvements that you can make, and to make it your property more resilient and to prevent future damage from occurring. This is a great part of our program so that we not only want to repair and replace, but we want to help you build back stronger. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know this is in really small type, but allow me to explain the current eligibility for anyone in Newcastle County. There was a presidential declaration made by FEMA for what we call individual assistance. When there's a declaration for individual assistance, SBA's program gets turned on. SBA is eligible to provide physical disaster loans in the primary counties that FEMA declared and economic injury in the contiguous and primary counties. So Delaware did not get a presidential declaration, but because Newcastle County is contiguous to one of the primary counties in New Jersey, contiguous can be adjoining, adjacent, or touching, or neighboring, if you want to think about it that way. So Delaware County qualifies for economic injury. That's because SBA realizes that business doesn't stop at the county line. You could have a linen company in Newcastle County, and your primary customers or clients are in New York. You find out that they are physically damaged. They're going to be months and months and months trying to repair their businesses. Let's say they're hotels and high-end restaurants. And so you, the linen company, are suffering because once a year you have a big drop-off with the major hotels and restaurants where you exchange the linens. You give them new bed linens, new napkins, tablecloths, etc. So you are suffering economically because businesses in adjoining counties lost their revenue and lost physically their parts of the hotel or parts of the restaurant. So therefore you are eligible for working capital only. The reason it's working capital only is because this was not a declaration for Delaware. Delaware's Newcastle County was included because it's contiguous to a New York County that was declared by FEMA. So this makes small businesses, agricultural cooperatives, small businesses engaged in aquaculture, and most private nonprofits eligible. You say, well, what is a small business? There is actually a definition of businesses. Businesses are classified by the North American Industrial Classification Code. There is associated to that code a maximum amount of revenue or number of employees that a business can have and still be considered small. The reason we want to be a small business is because it gives you an advantage in getting government contracts. So that's why we say small businesses. Anybody in Newcastle County that had damage from Hurricane Ida from September 1st to the 3rd can apply for these working capital loans. You have until June 6th to apply, but certainly the sooner the better. You can use working capital loans to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. So what that means is every month you pay your mortgage on the business building. We will give you money for that. You pay payroll taxes, you pay insurance, all these other things. Then we would provide enough working capital for that. But we cannot allow you to use the money to consolidate your debt because this is a lower interest rate. It's supposed to be that the business can use the money in the same way they would have used their own revenue had the disaster not occurred. Again, you can apply for up to $2 million. SBA will calculate the amount of the economic injury. The interest rate for businesses is 2.855%, and for nonprofits is 2%. You can apply online under the New Jersey Declaration 17143, and if you have questions, you can call our toll-free number, which I'll give you at the end. So if you have economic injury from Hurricane Ida that occurred September 1 through 3, then this is the disaster declaration for you to apply under. Next slide, please. Another way that Newcastle County became eligible for disaster assistance as a result of Pennsylvania's presidential declaration for individual assistance. Newcastle County was contiguous to the Pennsylvania county that was in that declaration. So again, Newcastle County has eligibility only for working capital loans, the economic injury disaster loans, for small businesses, small agricultural cooperatives, small businesses engaged in aquaculture, and most private nonprofits. This is due to Hurricane Ida again, but the dates of the incident, the date when the economic injury had to start occurring is August 31st to September 5th. So it's a little longer window in which economic injury started. Again, the funds are for working capital. And the way I think about it is money to keep the business in business. Up to $2 million, but SBA will calculate the actual loss. The interest rate for this is also 2.855 for small businesses and 2% for nonprofits. And we will talk again about how to apply online and get answers to your questions. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the big one, the one where most people are interested. Maryland received a declaration not from FEMA, but just from SBA. That means that Newcastle County is eligible for both physical damages and economic injury. So if anyone, meaning a business of any size, homeowner, renter, or nonprofit, had damage from Tropical Storm Ida starting August 31st and going to September 4th, you can apply for physical damage, losses to real estate and contents, or economic injury, working capital loans. You have until December 17th to apply for any loan for physical damages. If the business sustained physical damage, we are going to automatically anticipate that they have some working capital needs. It's very rare that you have water damage or wind damage or any type of damage physically that the business has not been interrupted. So that's why we do that. However, you can be in the same neighborhood even as homeowners and businesses that were physically damaged and you're untouched. But your business is impacted because who wants to go to a restaurant when there's all kinds of bulldozers and construction going on in the same neighborhood? Many people, if they hear about a certain neighborhood that's impacted from a disaster, assume that that means everybody, not just certain restaurants. So we have until December 17th, and that's coming up soon, to apply for physical damages. You have until July 18 to apply for the economic injury. That would be if you only had a need for working capital, and SBA will automatically calculate what your losses are based on the financial information provided. The interest rates here are the same as the other two, as low as 2.855% for the physical loans for businesses, 2% for nonprofits, and 1.563 for homeowners. And again, we have how to apply, and I'll go over that at a later slide. So this one is the only one where you can get help for physical damages. Delaware actually received a presidential declaration, but it's for public assistance. When a declaration is made for public assistance, FEMA helps the municipalities, the counties with their infrastructure loss and their emergency services needs. SBA declares the same areas as FEMA, but only for private nonprofit organizations. When we say private nonprofit, essentially we mean non-government. Non-government. So we're talking about, it could be private schools, it could be churches, it could be museums, art galleries, food kitchens, homeless shelters, any type of nonprofit organization becomes eligible. And under this type of declaration, those private nonprofits are eligible for physical losses, money to repair and replace the structural damage plus the contents, and most nonprofits are eligible for the working capital loans. The exception to that is if you are a religious organization. We are prohibited from giving working capital loans to religious organizations. However, churches that had physical damage are eligible for the physical losses. You have until December 23rd to apply for the physical damages. And again, this is only for nonprofit organizations. A normal for-profit business is not eligible under this declaration. And these nonprofits have until July 25th to apply for economic injury. If they sustain physical damage, we will automatically consider that the business or the nonprofit in this case had a need for capital loans. We have the interest rate on this is 2%. And again, we have an online registration URL, and anybody who needs assistance will go over the customer service number. Next slide, please. Okay, so what do you want to know about SBA disaster loans? Well, we're different than regular lenders in that the interest rate remains for the life of the loan. As long as SBA has it, the interest rate will not change. We can stretch the payments out as long as 30 years to help make the payments affordable. The payments are set based on the applicant's ability to repay. In cases where there's substantial damage after insurance is settled, the individual homeowner or the business may qualify for refinancing of existing debt, or they may qualify for relocation. That's something they should talk to their loan officer about. Next slide, please. All right, so what does it take to get an approval? Well, you gotta be in a declared county. So you need to go back through the slides and look at each disaster declaration and see what county you're, not what county, because we know we're talking about Newcastle County, but what declaration includes Newcastle County for physical losses, or which one has the window that you need for the economic injury. Credit is a factor. We look at the credit history in terms of the applicant and the business to determine whether or not it's satisfactory to SBA, and repayment ability. We look at the total income, the existing debts and obligations, and if there are funds left over, then we say that there are enough funds for an SBA loan payment. That's why we call ourselves cash flow lenders. Whereas a bank would say, well, how much equity is in that property, and use that as a determining factor. SBA does not require that there's enough equity in the property to secure a loan. We don't want to have repeat business, believe it or not. We want you to be protected in the future. So as a condition of many of our loans, we require that you have hazard insurance, which is your normal business or homeowner insurance, and in cases where you're in a special flood hazard area or experience multiple or repetitive flood losses, that you have flood insurance. Flood insurance is different than the traditional hazard insurance. It is a separate policy. So please don't think that if you have homeowners or a business policy, you're covered for flood. Most likely you are not. Next slide, please. What we are providing is a loan to cover the uninsured or uncompensated loss. That can be even the deductible of insurance. You don't have to have insurance settled before you apply with SBA. If we make a loan for the full value of the losses and later you get insurance recovery, you'll use that to pay the loan down. If you are an applicant and you had a disaster loan, or you had a federal student loan, or other obligations, then that, and you didn't pay it, that would be a criteria of why you would get approved for this disaster loan. One of the things that you probably wouldn't think of, but by law, we cannot lend to somebody, whether it's a part of the business or a homeowner or renter, who is more than 60 days delinquent in child support. We also require collateral. When the loan exceeds $25,000 for physical loss, we require collateral. A business can have up to, inclusive, $25,000 for physical loss and another $25,000 for economic injury, and the whole $50,000 would be unsecured. But one category cannot exceed the $25,000. You can't have $26,000 in physical losses and $24,000 in the economic injury, and it come up to the same $50,000 and it will be unsecured. It's a maximum $25,000 for physical damages and $25,000 for economic injury. Next slide, please. Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about preparedness and mitigation. Next slide. Again, we don't want repeat business. We want to help people understand how you can spend a little money and protect yourself and your property from damage in the future. One of the best things you can do is evaluate protective improvements and mitigation measures. The number of disasters continues to increase, but only 50% of those disasters trigger any federal assistance. That means most of the disasters, or at least half of the disasters, have no federal help. So you have to evaluate that a lot of times you might have flood damage or wind damage or what have you, and there's no other assistance except yourself, your bank to recover, and your insurance company to recover. So we want you to build back stronger and smarter. Consider providing, strengthening your businesses, putting in and maintaining gutters, backup generators, sump pumps. All those types of things can lessen the damage. And scientists have said every dollar spent on protective improvements can save you $6 in disaster damages. So it's very financially astute for you to consider mitigation. Next slide, please. We also have a reason for you to consider mitigation, and it's because you also are protecting your community. It's not just the business, it's not just the homeowner, but together, if we all consider and practice mitigation to prevent so much damage from occurring in the future, then we can survive these disasters. They're coming more frequently, they're coming stronger, they're requiring more assets, they're affecting more people, and you know, we're a society where we're on the go all the time. We're not canning goods and keeping things at home. We're not good about keeping 5 to 7 days of water and other supplies. We're not good about thinking something is going to happen. It's just a matter of when in fact that's really what is happening. And you'll find that if you didn't have any damage, but a lot of times codes change during times of disasters, and you might not be aware of it. You might want to consult your building authorities to find out what new codes are so that you can bring your property up to code to make sure that it is more sturdy, more resilient in future disasters. Next slide, please. So some things you can do for flood mitigation is you can seal the roof deck, elevate structure, put a sump pump in, you can relocate out of a floodplain, you can landscape your property in order to improve runoff. If you are in danger of wildfires, then you can install a Class A fire rated roof, non-combustible materials, remove your roof and gutter debris periodically, and make sure that the materials that are around your house are not combustible and would not ignite by airborne embers. Wind mitigation, that can be part of a hurricane or a tornado. Brace and upgrade to wind-rated garage doors. They have some really sturdy materials that will withstand winds up to 140 miles an hour. Hurricane roof straps is another option, and upgrade to pressure-rated windows. That was the one I was talking about, safety glass. Earthquakes, you can install window film. They say that just putting tape and an X on your window is not the same as having shatter-proof glass. And you consider anchoring the rooftop mounting equipment. You know, satellite dishes, chimneys, all those kinds of things. Next slide, please. Okay, if you are a business, you don't have to fill out the application by yourself. The application itself requires the application be filled out, that you provide a copy of your latest tax return, a form that will allow us to verify your tax filing and get a transcript, a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and monthly sales. If you don't know how to prepare those documents, you can visit one of SBA's resource partners and get help with preparing these financial documents and submitting the SBA loan application for free. Small business development centers are located in all universities and colleges throughout the United States. We have women's business centers that are part of SBA, SCORE, retired executives that provide counseling to businesses, and the Veterans Business Outreach Centers. All of this information is on sba.gov, and you can put in whatever your zip code is or your state location and find out the office nearest to you. Next slide, please. Okay, so just in case everybody was quiet and did not ask questions afterward, I thought I'd make some of my own up. So the question is, I own a business. Where can I get help with preparing financial statements and submitting my application? Again, you can contact a local small business development center, women's business center, Veterans Outreach Center, SCORE, or the SBA district office for assistance. You can call SBA's customer service line at 659-2955, or send an email to us at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov and ask any of your questions. If I already had a disaster loan, can I still apply? Absolutely, positively, yes. We have people that have been in multiple hurricanes and they have multiple disaster loans. We have people that had a COVID economic injury disaster loan and they can still apply for damages or working capital losses under Hurricane Ida. The loans cannot be consolidated. Each declaration stands on its own. The interest rate is set for that declaration, but you can have more than one declaration and more than one loan. Next slide, please. What happens if you're declined? SBA allows you to apply for reconsideration. Reconsideration means I know that I was declined for lack of repayment ability, but I'm going to add this person on the application to help with repayment ability. And so you have up to 6 months from the date of the decline letter in which to write a request for reconsideration, provide updated information, and submit it to us. No doesn't always mean no. It says no based on today's circumstance and the information provided. What are the filing requirements for business? Completed loan application, the IRS Form 4506C, copy of the most recent tax return. And then they're probably going to ask you for balance sheet, profit and loss statement, and monthly sales, depending on the type of loan that you have. We have a link here where if you would like, and I recommend, go online and download the paper application. Look at it, see what information is requested, and prepare the information before you submit an application online. I'm not saying fill out a paper application and then turn around and fill out an application online. What I'm saying is look at the filing requirements, look at the questions, and be ready with the answers so that when you go and apply online, which is recommended, it's a smoother process. Why do we want you to apply online? It's quicker. Your computer will talk directly to our computer. It's usually more accurate because you're spelling your street name. We're not having to read your handwriting. We're not having to transcribe. So it's a better process to apply online. Next slide, please. Okay, so the main thing to know is all of the information about SBA you can get very easily on sba.gov/disaster. Or you can call our customer service number 800-659-2955 or email us at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. I thank you for your interest. I thank you for your time. I am here to support you in any way possible, and hopefully this is giving you a little more information than you had before the meeting on the possible ways in which you will be eligible for recovery for our Hurricane Ida disaster loan. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. That was a very comprehensive overview, so I thank you very much for that. I'm now going to go to committee members to see if we have any questions. I see one hand. President Congo?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. Again, thank you, Mrs. Cook, for your presentation. Very thorough. So we know that Wilmington did not qualify for individual assistance. So based on your knowledge of that whole system, what would that have meant for our homeowners and renters who are affected by the flood if we did qualify for it?
The difference in getting a presidential declaration for individual assistance versus an SBA only declaration, which is like the Maryland declaration you are included in, is grants. FEMA offers grants for essential needs to make a home safe, sanitary, and functional. Or they can provide grants for people who can't be in their home to stay in a hotel or apartment, the same for renters. So grants are not available in an SBA only declaration. That's the biggest difference.
Okay, my audio was going through, sorry. So would those individuals have been, would grants have been available to those individuals to repair their homes if Wilmington qualified for a presidential?
Sure. They would be, SBA and FEMA work in tandem. So FEMA provides grants and they refer homeowners and renters over to SBA for long-term loans to repair and replace. So they would be eligible for both programs. But the difference in the two types of declarations is the inclusion of FEMA and their grant program.
Okay.
But yes, homeowners, repairs and replacements for renters and homeowners is part of each program under either type of declaration.
Okay, I just have a couple more follow-ups, Madam Chair.
Yes, proceed.
Thank you. And how much are those grants usually up to?
I'm not FEMA, so
Okay.
I can't speak
And
on that.
do you know if those decisions are ever reversed? Have you ever encountered that?
I really can't speak on that
Okay.
either.
President Congo?
You know, we're kind of waiting in the wings for the decisions. I know the decisions can be appealed, but again, I think even under SBA, we require that there are 25 home center businesses with 40% or more loss. And there was not a survey that concluded that those numbers were met for even SBA. So the damage that's out there must have been insured, or the emergency management people did not bring the properties that are damaged to the attention of the other emergency management team.
Okay, thank you very much. That's what I've been trying to get
Okay.
to the bottom of.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, President Congo, for bringing that up. That's what I've been trying to get to the bottom of. Is this appealable, and who made the decision, and what information was necessary for that decision? So it seems like, Ms. Cook, I understand it's on FEMA, but it can be appealed. Do you know who we can contact for the appeal process?
You would contact the FEMA regional administrator. Delaware is in FEMA Region 3. I don't have at my fingertips that administrator's name right now, but I can certainly send it to you.
Thank you very much. I will.
The appeal goes through the governor, and he appeals to the FEMA administrator. That's where the declaration requests are made, at the governor's level, with input from the emergency managers.
Thank you. Anything else, President Congo?
No, thank you very much. Mr. Cook, you said you can get that information to us?
Absolutely, as soon as we
Okay,
conclude this
all right,
meeting.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other council members with questions? I see a hand, but I don't know who that is.
It's Will.
Director Pack?
Yes. I just wanted to add to information that Ms. Cook provided, and Ms. Cook, thank you again for that. That was a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you. It provided me, and I thought I knew a lot about FBA, but I found that there's a whole lot I don't know. So thank you. As far as the appeal process, we're currently, and just like Ms. Cook said, the appeal process starts at the state level, and I'm working with DEMA to evaluate our application and to determine if we can expand the scope to include a greater level of area and damage, right, that would possibly qualify us for I declaration. And just let me say is that the declaration it's not a Wilmington declaration, it's a state of Delaware declaration, right? And it covers the whole, and it was for Newcastle County. So
Our declarations, FEMA and SBA, are made on the county level unless the state has independent cities, like Maryland and Virginia have independent cities that are not in a county. So
Right.
just have one county, and it could be declared under
Right.
FEMA or SBA.
Right, and just in talking with my counterparts at DEMA, one of the determining factors, or probably maybe 2 or 3 of the determining factors that were probably could be attributed to why our IA declaration was denied, and was the fact that the scope of the disaster within a small concentrated area, the extended damage, and the home ownership to rental ratio, and the amount of uninsured loss, right? So those are some of the factors that I was told that is considered by Region 3 to when they make their assessment and their evaluation. Mary Ann Tierney, I'm pretty sure that Mary Ann
That's
Tierney
exactly
is the,
right. Yes, thank you.
She's Region
Right.
3?
the
Mary
Region
Ann
3 director.
How do you spell her last name?
So we're in the process of just before this call. I was on a call with DEMA, looking at a possibility that we are going to do a virtual damage assessment to hopefully to include some areas or some properties that were not included in the original declaration. And then we'll see if it's enough to change the mind of Region 3 or whoever makes the decision.
Thank you very much for the additional information, Mr. Patrick. I have a question. On the SBA Maryland Disaster Declaration, under what is the interest rate, it says 1.563% for homeowners and renters. And my understanding is this is for physical damage? And if it's for physical damage, renters,
Yeah.
but wait, renters apply?
Homeowners and renters,
My question is
excuse me,
renters,
renters are only eligible for physical damages.
okay, so a renter is going to apply for physical damage to his rental property?
To their contents.
For their content?
If you had an apartment flooded, you are entitled to money for your clothing and furniture, linens, pots and pans, and if you had damage to a vehicle.
Thank you very much, thank you. And the other thing
Thank you for the question.
the other thing I wanted to point out is you mentioned that flood insurance is separate from other insurance, and I'm aware of that, but isn't that a government determination before you can even get flood insurance? You have to be in a government-approved flood zone or something?
You can get insurance and you don't have to be in a 100-year floodplain. It's just less expensive. But if you are in a 100-year floodplain, then a lot of times as a part of receiving federal assistance or getting federal loans, you must have flood insurance. So it's a requirement.
Okay, but
Just many people.
But I'm understanding you to say that you don't have to be in a flood zone for a regular insurance company to allow you to get flood insurance.
Okay, correct.
Thank you,
It's called a preferred policy.
thank you. Are there any other council members that have, committee members that have questions?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. If no
Okay,
one
I'm
else does.
sorry. President Congo, yes.
Yes, thank you. Just a follow-up for Director Patrick. As we're going through this appeal process, would it help if any of the local legislators are a part of that process? Do you need anything from council members or any county or state legislators? Any type of support as far as resolutions or letters?
No, well,
I'm not sure how that process works.
yeah, no. So, President Congo, yeah, you know, all the support is greatly appreciated, but it doesn't help the process. What we need to do is gather more information to support support an application. And we've looked at the area, the affected area, and just today, and just looking at the extended damage that along the Brandywine and some of the properties further upstream outside of the 11th Street Bridge. We're just looking at if there was enough damage in a Brandywine Falls or Bancroft Mills condos or Brandywine Park condos who also sustained damage, right, that could be included within the declaration to bolster up our application. And so that's what we need. We just need to find to expand the scope of the area and the extent of damage.
Okay. All right, thank you. And did they tell you, or do you already know how long that process usually takes, the appeal process?
No,
I have no idea. We get them the information.
No, sir, I have no idea.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, President Congo, what I do know is that we're looking to, like I said earlier, we're looking to do a virtual. We did a PDA preliminary damage assessment earlier on in the incident, just to get the documentation for the original application. That was DEMA and FEMA. It was a joint preliminary damage assessment that was done a couple months ago. And so we're going to go back and hopefully do a virtual and to capture additional damage and properties to expand the scope.
Okay, just one more follow-up, Madam Chair.
Yes.
When do we expect to get that information to FEMA? That new information?
As soon as hopefully within the next week, or like I said, I was on a call before this call, and working with DEMA and FEMA to just to ascertain what's needed, and as soon as we get additional information, uploading it to DEMA and FEMA, and they're sending it on up to be evaluated, right? So the quicker we get it, and hopefully, like I said, we can get it within the next week or so, and that's going to determine the disposition of our application.
Okay, thank you. And if you don't mind, if you can just let council know when that information is gathered and sent off, just so we can let the constituents know.
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Also, could you add to that what the criteria is? Like Ms. Cook was saying, they need 25 homes of 40% loss or more. Can you also include what FEMA requires in order to get the individual assistance? Whenever you send the information.
Yes, and theirs is there. Exactly, and Madam Chair, there's isn't with IA, it's not just as cut and dry as that. So.
Oh yeah, I'm aware. I went through the page. I read it. It's a long document, as most government documents are. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the table of contents was 2 pages.
Exactly, and yeah. But yes, so yeah, I'll definitely provide that information.
Okay, thank you. Are there any council members not on the committee that have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Harley has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have several questions. So my first question is this. It sounds like to me, based on the information that was shared by Ms. Cook, thank you for this detailed information. It was very helpful. It sounds like the residents that were impacted by Ida could benefit from the loans from your organization. So one, have your organization or have you partnered with another organization to get information to the residents that were impacted by Ida?
When we have a disaster declaration, which in this case, what you're talking about is the declaration under Maryland in which Newcastle County is contiguous. We put out press releases. We send to the emergency managers, to counties, to mayors, all over as best we can to, and ask for everybody to further the information. We are not in a environment, especially because of COVID, where we can do much more than be on virtual calls if people want to, host a meeting for a particular community. We don't have any disaster centers in contiguous states. We just had one in Maryland open for a week and a half, which is our usual amount of time. So just depend on, the emergency managers and congressional offices that we send the press releases to and others to further our message.
And so my follow-up question would be, would it be helpful, since it was a pretty concentrated area, would it be helpful if we could get flyers out to the residents with information to contact your organization? Would that be helpful?
We would be happy to prepare flyers for distribution. They don't, we would put on the flyer how they can apply online, how they can look up information. So we would be happy to support that. I mean, we are here for the disaster survivors. And since they are eligible under the Maryland Declaration, whatever we can do to help them learn about the available assistance, the better. And if there were to be later on a FEMA declaration, we would coordinate the names of the people that we were helping with FEMA, so that if there's a possibility for them to get any FEMA grants, that would occur as well.
Thank you. My thoughts are that we could possibly work from both ends. While Mr. Patrick is working on the assessment that he just shared, we could also get flyers and get some information out to the residents. Those are my thoughts after hearing your information on this evening. Do you agree?
Somehow you're kind of breaking up and I couldn't hear you.
I'll repeat it. I said.
Thank you, that's much better.
Okay. I said I think that it would be helpful if we could work from both ends, meaning as Mr. Patrick is working on his end to possibly submit this appeal, which we don't know what the outcome would be. I think that it would be helpful to the residents if we could work from both ends, get the flyers out to the residents while Mr. Patrick is working on the appeal. That was my question to you. Do you think that would be a good idea?
Sure. I mean, we don't want people to wait. So if there's any opportunity for them to apply now, they should. And in the meantime, if something else comes along, then we'll handle it at that point. But, the longer people wait, the more the temperatures change and, the harder it is for people to, repair and the more disappointed they get. So absolutely, if you all send me a request, I'll make sure that we can design a flyer and send it back to you. And my email is just my name, mary.cook@sba.gov.
Thank you. That's an excellent idea, Councilwoman Harley. But they only have until December 17th to apply. So this is a quick turnaround. And I think on the flyer, so that our population, excuse me, will understand, we need to put on there that it's for renters and homeowners and physical, damaged physically to their property, so that they understand, and that the interest rate is only 1%. I think the word loan really scared people away, because people have been made aware that they could apply for a loan, but I don't think that many people with their current financial situations wanted to get into a loan situation. So if we can craft a flyer.
One thing, Madam, one thing I didn't mention that is occurring currently because of COVID, we are postponing the first payment due on loans to 18 months from the date of the note. That means that their first payment will not be until a year and a half from the date of the promissory note. That gives them time to pay off other debts and obligations, to, maybe get a Christmas job, or, part-time job, or do some overtime, or what have you. So I don't want to be seen as pushing loans. I'm pushing opportunities for recovery.
Right.
And if they don't apply for a loan, where's the money coming from? And the more that you allow a house or home or your personal property to deteriorate, the more problem you're going to have in recovering.
Yes, I agree. One other thing, it seemed like you had, pardon me?
I wasn't done.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And so, thank you. My other question was, it was related to slide number 11, where you talked about flood insurance. October the 30th, there was some flooding in one of the communities that I represent over in Southbridge on Bradford Street. And I'm just trying to understand, one, that was October the 30th, and I know it doesn't have anything to do with Ida, but that area is considered a flood zone, and I wanted to know if the residents from that particular area that was impacted, could they also call your organization for assistance?
The answer to that is no, because our assistance is only offered when there is a federal disaster declaration. That's the key to getting FEMA help or SBA help. And just overall in understanding flood insurance, and the reason I know so much about it is I've been in disaster for 30 years. If you are in a certain zone, all the land gets rated. And if you're in a zone, A is an apple or V is in Victor, it means that the probability of flooding is 1 in 100 years. And people think, well, I flooded last year, I got 99 more years and be safe. That's not exactly how it happens.
Right.
It just means that it's called a 100-year floodplain. There are properties that flood that never have flooded before. In typical, insurance agents don't write to sell flood insurance because there's not a big commission in it. However, flood insurance is available even if you're not in a high-risk area. You could be in a zone B as in boy, C as in cat, D as in dog, or X, and get what would be called a preferred risk policy. The other thing that happens more in the Northeast is instead of just getting regular flood water, a lot of times it's sewer backup. Sewer backup is not covered on a typical business or homeowner's policy either. It has to be a rider, which is an addition to the policy that says that you would be covered in the event of sewer backup. So the main thing is we need to try to educate everybody on the coverage that's available and how to get it and why to get it. Because, especially if you're suffering economically, insurance is the first thing to go. But as we continue as a society, as whether or not you believe in global warming, as we continue to have more and more substantial disasters, insurance is going to be a very important component for people. And so, working with the insurance commissioners, certainly your emergency management for City of Delaware, the county, the state, to, really try to educate everybody on the significance and the importance of finding out what they're covered for, what they're not covered for. We really didn't think much, even during Ebola, about pandemics. And then when COVID came along, I had a lot of people call and say, oh, I wasn't worried because I had business interruption insurance. And this is a business interruption. Well, business interruption insurance, we found out, doesn't have pandemic as one of the reasons that would provide economic injury or let's say business interruption payoff. And so that's going to be a thing, be interesting to see if the insurance world changes those policies and adds pandemic. So it's a very tough thing to learn, but it's even a tougher thing to get communities, both businesses and residents, to understand the significance of having proper insurance as a first line of defense.
I agree, and I'm going to allow Madam Chair to move on. Do you go to civic associations to do presentations to talk about this information?
We have gone to everybody.
Okay.
It's pretty well, if we get asked, we come. Now, for right now, I'm only available virtually.
Okay.
We have a very skeleton crew on the ground. We cover 27 states, and if there's somebody in the area, we may be able to do something with, civic organizations or whomever, religious organizations. But we just, as in this meeting, we will try to honor and support you in any way possible. And the more that we can get to come to a meeting, the better it is.
I appreciate that. You answered my question regarding the one community that had flooding on October the 30th, but I think that the information that you shared on tonight would be very valuable, even if it has to be a virtual meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one more thing, and then I'm going to go to, I guess, the public. It seemed like the qualifications for the loans were pretty stringent. Are there any exceptions given for underprivileged persons whose homes were damaged, who might not have good credit rating?
And we have the appeal process, and let's just take the example where I said if there was delinquent child support, that would be an automatic decline for credit. But because the courts became backlogged in COVID and were closed, a lot of the records may not be up to date. So if within that 6 months, the individual business owner or individual homeowner or renter can show that they're current on the child support, they can ask for reconsideration, and we will take a second look at it. Now, if there are people that are truly low-income people and could not afford a loan, they're just barely making ends meet, we don't have a grant program. The only thing that I can recommend is that your committee talk to an organization called Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, VOAD, VOAD, or United Way, or American Red Cross. These organizations are supposed to help pick up the slack for those that are ineligible for assistance through other means. So that's the only thing that I can recommend.
Oh, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Are there non-committee members, council members that have any questions? Oh, Mr. Patrick, is your hand up again and I've ignored you?
Yes, ma'am, it
I'm
is,
sorry,
Madam
I'm
Chair.
sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, there's 2 points. So, and it's in reference to Councilwoman Harley's question about getting dissemination of the information. And just as Ms. Cook had indicated, that we have partnered with Delaware Volunteer Organization Active in Disaster, the Delaware BOAD, who has been very active in getting information out to the community. And to that process, we've already held, they're in the process of forming a long-term recovery group, which is going to be, it's created for the community, it's run by the community, and all the rules and the whole process is driven by the community. We've had 2 meetings, one in October, one in November. The 3rd meeting is December the 8th. I'm thinking the last 2 meetings were at the warehouse on Thatcher Street. I'm thinking that this 3rd meeting is going to be at the warehouse. And the purpose is just that, it's long-term recovery. It's looking at, just as Ms. Cook was saying, being able to fill those gaps. You know, there's a lot of residents in that community who do not have the resources to fund their recovery. They can't get loans. They don't have the resources. Insurance didn't cover their loss, right? So hopefully the long-term recovery group will fill those gaps. And that is a process. But again, one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you hear the name long-term recovery group, it doesn't happen it won't happen tomorrow. It's a process. Right? So, and I'm very thankful to my partners in the Delaware BOAD who's worked with me throughout the disaster.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to hear that group is there. That's wonderful.
Can you give us the date and time for that next meeting?
Yes, it's December the 8th, 7 p.m. at the warehouse.
Thank you. And it's open to everyone?
Anyone, yes.
Madam Chair, can I just ask him a quick question?
Yes. Councilman Harlan.
Mr. Patrick, so are you saying that the information from the SBA have already been distributed to those residents? I'm only asking that question so we don't have to duplicate efforts.
Councilwoman Harvey, so that information was disseminated to those who attended the long-term recovery group meetings, right? So no, so it wouldn't be duplication of effort.
It would not.
Right.
Thank you.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the public? Mr. DeMarquis, pardon me?
We do have one question online as well. We have one comment online as well.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. do you want me to go online first?
Yes.
Okay.
Easier for
So
record keepers.
what's the name of the,
Cheyenne Miller.
oh, Miss Miller, you may speak. Are you on mute, Miss Miller?
She's got another meeting at 6:30.
That's like 2 minutes, oh. Cheyenne? Okay, well,
There she goes.
I was just given the ability to unmute.
okay.
I apologize for that. In regards to the flood victims, a letter was sent to several people in regards to the fact that these are homeless people. And I was hoping that I could read this letter before I have to leave soon. Is that possible?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So this letter is addressed to the mayor, the elected city council members, as well as Director Eugene Young at the Delaware State Housing Authority, Reach Riverside, Delaware Department of Health and Social Services, and some of our state representatives as well, and some of our federal representatives. In September, Northeast Wilmington was hit with catastrophic flooding from Hurricane Ida. Hundreds of homes were destroyed and many families were displaced. To date, more than 30 families from Northeast Wilmington are still homeless. That number may or may not be higher because we don't have accurate counts of how many people are actually homeless, and neither do any of the agencies we've spoken with that are addressed in this letter. Although some of these families have received assistance with cleanup and charity, a lot of them won't be able to return to their homes until well into 2022, and some might not be able to return at all. But the state of Wilmington, the state of Delaware and the city of Wilmington have received millions of dollars in federal aid. So we're urging Mayor Mike Przicki and City Council and many others to collaborate with state agencies, local developers to place residents into permanent housing. And while we understand that the city is facing a shortage of housing, there are still some newly built apartments across the city that might be able to house these residents, such as like places like the Residence at Midtown Park near Market Street, 2000 Pennsylvania Avenue, the Cooper Apartments near the riverfront. Unfortunately, many of the displaced residents have limited incomes and they can't afford market rate housing without some form of assistance. And so in this letter, there's a proposal that the Przicki administration collaborates with developers, private landlords, city and state agencies to provide access to the existing market rate units. They can use city and state funding, including the American Rescue Plan funds and the Delaware Housing Assistance Program funds, to pay for the full cost of rent for the year, including the cost of the security deposit for each displaced family. We know that the city of Wilmington is going to get more than $55 million from the American Rescue Plan, and they've already received at least $27 million. The Delaware State Housing Authority has received $200 million for the Delaware Housing Assistance Program, and Reach Riverside has received $25 million from the American Rescue Plan as well, and that came from the state. So what can happen is by partnering with private landlords and developers, we can place each family in an available unit for 1 year, and DHSS can actually provide those families with the wraparound services they need, like employment assistance and financial planning. And because we're asking them to be placed in market rate housing, once that money runs out, those families will not be able to afford and stay in that housing. So we're recommending that once these units are being finished built, that they place these residents in Reach Riverside units. Reach Riverside is creating hundreds of new mixed income housing units in the Riverside neighborhood. And while some of the low income units are already allocated, we're urging that Reach Riverside ensures that the displaced families have access to the units that are finished in the first phases of the project, which may mean transferring a portion of the market rate units into affordable ones. You can subsidize this using American Rescue Plan funds. Many public taxpayer dollars through the form of tax breaks, reimbursement programs, public-private partnerships have been provided to developers across the city to create market rate housing. But a lot of the families from the city cannot afford to live in that housing. So it's very important that we get support from City Council, the mayor, everyone, to use the relationships we have with these developers and use the American Rescue Plan funds and other federal funds to house these people.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. You've gone over your time, so I'll give you a couple minutes just to make the final statement.
That's my final statement, just what was written in that letter.
Okay, would you email me a copy of the letter, please?
I can, thank you.
Oh, we already have a copy, and I may have one in my email box. But you don't have to do that. We have a copy, and administration, staff will forward me a copy. Thank you for Thank you for your input. Are there any other individuals on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we're going to DeMarquis, Mr. DeMarquis.
I support Cheyenne's resolution, her proposal, and I support many of the speakers and their ideas. The SBA has been good to me as far as information and guidance, direction. SBDC at University of Delaware, Dave Baldini down there, has helped me with my business. My concern when the Director of Emergency Management in Wilmington, Willie Patrick, told me that he was going to be going out and letting people know that the SBA is going to be helping them out, these homeowners, these residents, these people that rent, these people that had just experienced crisis, was that these aren't business owners, most of them. They're not people that own businesses. So why is it that the SBA is going to be giving out loans? So I'm thankful that, I'm sorry, what was the name again?
Ms. Cook?
Ms. Cook. I'm thankful that Ms. Cook let us know that the loans aren't expensive money. They are, that it's money that can be paid back if you are approved for it. But I couldn't agree with letting people that had experienced crisis and was still in danger, people that was still living in sewage, because that sewage backup, that water backup, that did happen in Northeast Wilmington. We thank God that nobody died in Northeast Wilmington, but people were seriously affected. And that injury, that long-term damage is going to affect them. The trauma that they've lived through is going to affect them mentally, spiritually, emotionally for a long time to come. It was a disaster that happened on September 2nd, and the recovery still is a disaster, and we need for the city to do more to help the people that live in our city to have just basic human rights and basic benefits of life, because people experience the worst. So we need to help the people that experience this damage. The solution, what it is that Cheyenne put together, is amazing. Rent, utilities being paid. You know, if I had money to pay for everybody's heater, I would pay for everybody's heater. If I had money to pay for everybody's repairs on the basements and living rooms of their homes to be repaired, I would pay for everyone. I don't have that. You know, I have a voice. I can speak. I had the ability to go to people's houses with flyers to let them know that the warehouse was giving out donations and they're giving out grants and things like that. All the different organizations that came together, the Red Cross, the Lions Club, many of them that Ms. Cook mentioned, we let them know what it is that is going on. We let the people, the residents that are victims here, know that they have help. Now we can also let them know about the SBA's help. And that's okay to let people know that. But grants should be awarded. Real help with no strings attached should be awarded, because the area, because Newcastle County is contiguous with Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. They should be eligible for the same benefits that those people have, the same grants that those people have, so that we can all have what it is that we desire in life. And that's peace, that's affordable living, that's a living wage. We want all these things for people that have experienced crisis here. So I thank you guys for allowing me to speak and to share. And I thank you guys for doing the work. I thank you, Ms. Cook. I thank you, Mr. Patrick. I thank you, Mr. Congo. And I thank you, Mrs. Gray, for letting me know about this meeting. God bless you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. DeMarquis, you have been the voice, at least the voice to me, of these people who have been affected by Ida. So now that you have this information, you're not by yourself, but continue telling the community, especially that they can apply for a 1%, 1.5% loan to recoup what they lost in physical properties. I don't think they understood that, because like you said, they thought it was businesses only. So we'll try to get something out, but you can spread the word for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on this time. We have two resolutions on the agenda. The first one is a resolution encouraging Delaware General Assembly to have inmates in the state of Delaware to have the right to vote. Is Councilwoman Darby with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. This legislation is in regards to our redistricting process and really understanding how we make sure that vulnerable communities are protected. And one ways that we have done that already with our redistricting committee is making sure that people who are incarcerated, that they're counted by their last known address to prevent prison mandering. However, the next step for me is really looking at how do we even have a conscience to count incarcerated people votes at all, and they are not allowed to vote. So I will open it up to my colleagues if anyone has any comments or questions or concerns. So I'm going to open it up.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Darby. Are there any council members that have, excuse me, questions or comments? I keep saying council. Committee members? I don't see any hands. Are there any hands? Are there any non-committee members that have any questions or input? Okay, what about people at large in Zoom?
No hands up at this time.
And there's no one here in chambers?
No, ma'am.
Okay, this does not require a vote because this is a resolution and this will be moved forward. Do we have a date?
This will be on an agenda sometime in the future.
Okay,
After December.
after December, after Christmas, you said?
Yes.
Okay, this will be on our agenda after Christmas. So anyone listening that's interested in it, just have to watch our calendar. The next thing on the agenda is a resolution requesting the Delaware General Assembly to amend the city chapter to impose term limits for members of the Wilmington City Council. Sponsor is also Councilwoman Darby. Do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I do. I'm actually bringing it up on my phone to kind of hit on some of the details. Okay, so this resolution in summary is requesting that the Delaware General Assembly amend Section 200 of the city charter to impose a term limit for city council members of not more than 3 terms in each representative capacity. Council members elected from a councilmanic district, council members at large, and president of the council. There is no fiscal impact to the city stemming from this resolution. So the main change is that that no council member shall be eligible for election for more than 3 terms in each representative capacity. So that's saying as a district person that I have 3 terms, which would be 12 years max. And then after that, I either pass the baton on to the next person or I run for at large or for the president position or whatever at that point. But really putting a cap on how long people are remaining on city council. And some of the key things I have here is that based on data, the majority of Americans want elected officials to have term limits. It has not been, it has not happened on many levels. From federal level, a lot of people want Congress to have term limits, all the way down to like school boards or in some areas where citizens want it, but it's not happening because politicians have self-serving interests in maintaining the status quo and maintaining power and control over who maintains and who remains in these seats. Having term limits allows for younger people to run. So a lot of times you see a lot of older people who stay in these positions for decades. And it creates a barrier or a block for younger people to be able to enter into the political scene, especially in Delaware, where we have a Delaware way, where based off of name, based off of status, people remain in positions. And I think having term limits will limit the influence of the Delaware way. It would bring constant, fresh, new ideals and perspectives. I feel like we don't have fresh, new ideas and perspectives that come to play on city council. Having term limits would keep more people engaged because they know that we are trying to avoid having career politicians for a part-time local position. And we're really looking for term limits to really change the intent of what politics should look like in Wilmington for a part-time local level position where it's an act of civic duty. This is not for it to be a career. This is for you you're elected, you serve, you do your civic duty as a leader in the community. You either give leadership skills to other people who are either younger or people who are interested to pass on the baton to complete whatever you need to complete or want to complete while you're on council. It changes, so having term limit changes the way leadership operate. Instead of career politician, the focus will be on developing other leaders who are like-minded. And data and statistics show that having term limits, councils have been more productive and community-centered politicians. And I believe this is like a real power move to have term limits because Wilmington could have a large voice at the table. And currently we really don't. And we could be leading in the state across a lot of things and we're not. And I think we need to take the steps for the legislative branch of Wilmington to not be overpowered and influenced so much by our executive branch. I'm looking for a council that is more diverse with new ideas and where people are willing and ready to adapt to like a changing world and leadership styles. So I proposed this. I have spoke to a few people down at the General Assembly about this and about the need for term limits in Wilmington. I did a poll with Wilmington residents. Over 99% of people want term limits for Wilmington City Council. They are not interested in career politicians, but people who are going to get in, who are going to be engaged, productive, and community-centered in the way that we are conducting business on council. So that is where the term limits came from, really from the community asking for term limits to happen, and then just doing the research and presenting this legislation today.
Thank you, Councilwoman Darby. Do we have any comments or questions from committee members? I don't see any hands. No? What about council members?
President Congo has his hand up.
Okay, President Congo?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. When will this be before full council?
I just got the date. It's December 9th.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Both of these resolutions will be will be on the agenda for council meeting December 9th.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councilwoman Darby.
Anyone else?
I have one.
Okay, Councilwoman Harley?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I personally would not be interested in amending the charter to impose term limits until the General Assembly considers doing that. Right now, if there are individuals in the community that want that, I just feel as though that is something that is not innately right with us requesting the Delaware General Assembly to amend our charter, and they don't have term limits. So I would be more interested in considering something like this when the General Assembly makes that decision to make term limits. And then secondly, I also feel as though the voters let the voters decide, who they want for their, to represent them. If the people are out there in the community that want that, then they have a voice, and I encourage them to let their voice be known. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee members? Well, I have a comment also. I'm definitely for term limits, starting with us all the way up to the feds. I've always been for term limits. But my concern here and I'm not concerned with who starts it, but this $8,000 per annum, I think that's ridiculous. This is rated as a part-time job, but it's very difficult to do it part-time. It turns into a full-time job split between half a day and half of an evening. So I would just like to know from Councilwoman Darby where they got the $8,000 per annum. How do you expect someone to live off that? And I don't really think it's that easy to have another part-time job. You may be able to do it now because everyone's doing Zoom, but I would just like an explanation how you expect a person to live off of that for 3 or 4 years.
Yes, Chair. So my focus was just adjusting or making an amendment to the term limit. So that's already there. I didn't make any changes to that number. So that is only thing that I changed or I'm adding is the underlying parts in that paper that you're looking at. I haven't even looked at that. So, but I think you're making a good point. This is not a part-time job. So I agree with you on that, but I'm not addressing that with this legislation, and that's already in play. So I didn't look at the numbers.
Well, could you remove that? Wait.
Chair Gray, this is, as Councilwoman Darby started, this is already in our charter. And immediately after that, it says, or other such sum as council shall from time to time ordain. That's covered in the annual budget process, is how council does their current pay increases.
Okay, thank you. So we're not at $8,000.
No, ma'am.
In fact, I just heard that Philadelphia is thinking about passing a law where their council members cannot have a part-time job, but then they're going to think about increasing their salaries. But they don't want another job, and I would be more for that you can't have another job, and we get an increase in the salary for being a council member. Okay, are there any people in the public by way of Zoom that have a comment or a question about this resolution?
No, ma'am.
No, and there's no one here in chambers. So this resolution does not have to be voted out of committee, and as I stated before, it will be on the agenda for council meeting for December 9th. I think that is all the business for this committee. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
A second? It has been moved in second, and the meeting is officially closed. Thank everyone for joining us, and it was very interesting, and I think we accomplished a lot as far as with the flood. We do know what parameters, how we can go forward to possibly helping the people that need the help. So I thank everyone for their input and for their information and for their time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. How do I turn this off?